But in many ways, that knowledge gap has worsened. We have heard predictions for some years now about some inevitable clash of the industrialized West with the Muslim world. These multiplied, of course, in the wake of the 9/11 tragedies and other violent episodes. But most Muslims don't think that way. Only an extreme minority does. For most of us, there is singularly little in our theology that would clash with the other Abrahamic faiths, with Christianity and with Judaism. And there is much more in harmony. What has happened to the Islamic tradition that says our best friends will be from the other Abrahamic faiths, known as the people of the book, all of whose faith builds on monotheistic revelation? Of course, much of what the West has seen about the Muslim world in recent years has been through a media lens of instability and confrontation. What is highly abnormal in the Islamic world thus often gets mistaken for what is normal. But that is all the more reason for us to work from all directions to replace fearful ignorance with empathetic knowledge. Down through many centuries, great Muslim cultures were built on the principles of inclusiveness. Some of the best minds and creative spirits from every corner of the world, independent of ethnic or religious identities, were brought together as great Muslim centers of learning. My own ancestors, the Fatimids, founded one of the world's oldest universities, Al-Azhar in Cairo, over 1,000 years ago. In fields of learning from mathematics to astronomy, from philosophy to medicine, Muslim scholars sharpened the cutting edge of human knowledge. They were the equivalents of thinkers like Plato and Aristotle, Galileo and Newton, yet their names are scarcely known in the West today. How many would recognize the name of Al-Khwarizmi, the Persian mathematician who developed some 1,200 years ago the algorithm which is the foundation of the search engine technology? I wondered what would have happened if Al-Khwarizmi had patented or copyrighted his algorithm. And I tried to analyze what would be the consequences. Well, the first consequence is that copyright lawyers around the world would either be billionaires or bust. There were those who had broken the copyright would be billionaires, and the others goodbye. Secondly, the programs probably would have been renamed. So if they had been renamed, either they would have Muslim names or they would keep their names. If they had Muslim names, they would be in Arabic or Turkish or Persian or Urdu, and none of you would be able to pronounce those names. If the names were kept, then they would be printed in the developing world, and you know what it's like to print English in the developing world. So Twitter would have become Twit. Google would have become Giggle. And our good friend Bill Gates, well, that would be the end of Bill Gates. But I can't be serious all the time, and sometimes I like a good laugh. So I, on the other hand, must get back to serious matters because this is supposed to be a serious lecture. In the Muslim world itself, as is true outside of it, much of our history and culture and art has been obscured, and with it, the clear sense of Muslim diversity. Among other incomprehensions is the increasing conflict between Sunni and Shia Muslims. In places like Pakistan and Malaysia, Iraq and Syria, Lebanon and Bahrain, Yemen and Somalia and Afghanistan, the Shia-Sunni conflict is becoming an absolute disaster. But the harsh truth is that religious hostility and intolerance between as well as within religions is contributing to violent crises and political impasse all across the world. In the Central African Republic, in South Sudan, in Nigeria, in Myanmar, in the Philippines and in the Ukraine, and in many other places. Such hostilities, of course, represent the most sinister side of what I have described as the centrifugal, fragmenting patterns of our times. So then, how can we respond to such tendencies? The response I would emphasize today is a thoughtful, renewed commitment to the concept of pluralism and to the closely related potential of civil society. A pluralist commitment is rooted in the essential unity of the human race. Does the Holy Quran not say that mankind is descended from a single soul? In an increasingly cosmopolitan world, it is essential that we live by a cosmopolitan ethic, one that addresses the age-old need to balance the particular and the universal, to honor both human rights and social duties, to advance personal freedom and to accept human responsibility. It is in that spirit that we can nurture bonds of confidence across different peoples and unique individuals, welcoming the growing diversity of our world, even in matters of faith, as a gift of the divine. Difference in this context can become an opportunity, not a threat, a blessing rather than a burden. This brings us to the challenges of governance in our time. How do we organize our complex societies to achieve harmony and coherence and progress, even at this time of growing diversity? These have always been difficult questions, and they're not getting any easier. As you know, they were particularly difficult questions for the United States. Back in this university's earliest years, as 13 former colonies tried to write a new national constitution. George Washington, who had presided over the Constitutional Convention, came to this campus in 1790, after just 1 year as president.